Hey, Atrina, how are you?
Hey Nick, I'm well. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Everything's okay and you're healthy over there?
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. So there's been lots of news, obviously recently, besides COVID-19 and everything else that's happening in the world. There's lots to talk about in terms of the housing market, and CMHC has been in the news recently, so we're going to talk about that. And so let's just dive right into it. How's the housing market on your end?
I think it's been gradually picking up for me. I know I had a lot of clients that were holding off initially, and just like we were talking, maybe it's just people that are eager to get out and get on with their lives. But definitely, we've seen an increase, and I know most people in my office are quite busy as well. So I think the market in general has been picking up.
Yeah, we've definitely noticed the same as well. There's a lot more activity out there. Just to go back a little bit in terms of stats provided by the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, sales were down by just over 56% in the month of April. In May, they increased up to 34%. So we saw an activity last month. I fully expect to see June on similar numbers, if not even better. I think you're right. People want to get outside more and get back to their normal lives. And, before COVID-19 hit, we all had business plans and plans in general for what they wanted to do in 2020. So I think people just want to kind of get back into that.
Yeah,
Um, the
travel
typical
plans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The typical spring market is usually between March to June. That's usually, as realtors, mortgage brokers, that's our busy time. Um, I'm predicting right now that we're going to see a longer spring market. I think it's going to carry right through until summer, possibly into September, even October. Hopefully we don't get a spike in cases of COVID-19, or that second wave isn't too bad here in BC, which would definitely slow things down. But if that doesn't happen, I fully expect the housing market to trend upwards and moving forward in a positive direction.
I think you're making a lot of good points, and a lot of people that were affected by temporary layoffs or reduced hours, they're kind of starting to get back to their normal hours. I've spoken with a few clients, and they're starting again in July, or some of them have already been on their full-time hours again. So I think that consumer confidence in terms of them buying real estate could be a little bit higher as well, which is helping with our wave that we're getting with the increase of sales.
I agree. When COVID-19 really hit back in late February, March, we had a number of clients that were kind of already on the fence between buying and selling. And when this all started, they basically said, hey, let's see how this pans out and we'll continue our search afterwards. They're slowly coming back and saying, hey, maybe now is a good time to start our property search again. And they're wanting more information of what the market is doing. So we've kept in touch with them the entire time, making sure they're okay, and just letting them know what the housing market is doing. And by providing, our clients all the information possible, it gives them, definitely some information of a decision that they can make going forward. So that's really all we can do. So things seem to be trending in a positive direction right now.
I agree.
Yeah. So as we mentioned off the top, CMHC has been in the news quite a bit lately. Would you like to start off with that?
Definitely. So anytime there's any kind of mortgage news, there is a lot of misinformation and just information that I think people are seeking information and maybe they're not getting it from the right sources. I had a client reach out yesterday to me and ask me if the minimum down payment has been bumped up to 20%. So it hasn't. The minimum down payment has not been affected. It still remains at 5% for properties less than 500,000, and then anything over there'd be a different down payment requirement. So for example, if it's still insured, it would be 5% of the first 500, 10% of the remaining. And then of course, if it's not insured, it would be minimum 20%. And then the higher the purchase price goes, the more down payment the lender would require from you. The changes that we did see happen, which will take place as of July 1st, is that CMHC will reduce borrowing power for people that are looking for insured mortgages through them. And so this change will impact people by reducing the amount of mortgage that they can qualify for about in about 10%. So if they were able to borrow 500 before, they'd be able to borrow 450, which is a substantial change. They increased the minimum credit score, and then they also said that you cannot use borrowed sources for down payment. Now, we do have two other insurers in Canada. We have Canada Guarantee and Genworth, and they've both come out and said that they're not making any changes. So this is great for consumers because more choice means it's always a better option for them. And if the borrowing power is affected by CMHC, then they can go with the other two insurers. Now, will it impact people? Yes, it'll still impact some people because maybe if the program is, maybe if the lender can only insure that property with CMHC, or if it's a special rate or something, it will affect some people, but not to the extent that we thought initially, or if all three insurers had kind of followed suit and changed their lending guidelines as CMHC had.
Mm-hmm. Do you really see an impact throughout Metro Vancouver in terms of, our market is a little bit different than the rest of Canada. Prices are obviously different. Do you really see much impact with CMHC guidelines, impacting the buyers or the homeowners here today?
Not many of my mortgages are insured because I think our property prices are higher here. If all three insurers, for the insured ones, if all three insurers followed suit, yes, I would see an impact for sure because our prices are higher and our incomes aren't significantly higher. So if there's 10% reduction in borrowing power, I think that's going to hurt a lot of people. But if it's just one of the insurers, I don't see it being impacted that much. Some deals will go to different insurers. Right now, I'm working on a leasehold. It's a leasehold at SFU. And I believe both Genworth and CMHC is doing it, but the lender sent it to CMHC. So, maybe past July 1st, this person would have a harder time qualifying for that mortgage because they would need more income. But thankfully, no, I don't see that much of a huge change because thankfully we still do have Genworth and Canada Guarantee. There may be some changes in terms of rates that are coming. If the lender can insure the mortgage with CMHC, they may be able to offer a better rate because they have a little bit more security if that loan goes sideways and if they need to essentially pay out the loan that's not being paid. But I think in general, we're not going to see a huge drastic change. Okay,
that's positive. Just a question regarding that situation with that client up at SFU.
Yeah.
If the lender can't get an approval from CMHC, can they go to Genworth or Canada Guarantee?
So for that particular property, leaseholds are very different. It would depend on who's holding the lease, where the lease is, if it's prepaid or not, how many years are left on the lease. For this particular property, both Genworth and CMHC would lend, but the lender sent it to CMHC first because the rules aren't in place yet. If let's say this was passed July 1st and CMHC declined, yes, we could go to Genworth and then they can take a look at it. But then if Genworth declines it for this property, then we're out of luck.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for this particular property. Now, for this client in particular, they're buying something less expensive than what they were approved for. So for them, it wouldn't make a difference anyways. But for someone who's buying something at the top end of their budget, they would definitely have an impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good information. And it's always so important to not necessarily read everything that you see on the internet, or you get your eyes get caught by a certain headline. It's really important to go to your local professionals such as yourself and me, and to find out what actually is happening. Um, the one thing we saw, CMHC came out with their projections in terms of prices and how they would impact Canada over the next year. And they predicted prices to fall anywhere from 9 to 18%. What are your thoughts on that?
I know they came out recently saying that prices will kind of level up again mid 2021. I don't know. I mean, from the clients that I'm working with and from what I'm seeing that's coming to me, of course, I'm seeing only what's coming to me, so I can't have a broad say of what's going on in the market. But prices are a little bit lower. I don't know if they're 9 to 18% lower. Maybe it's because of our market. Maybe our market's a little bit different than some other parts of Canada. Yeah, I'm seeing maybe like 10,000, 15,000 up listing price for properties that have been listed for a while. But then there's still some properties, we were talking about this before the call, but detached homes kind of around the $1 million mark are still kind of, they're still competitive for people to get into, and people are still going in with other people trying to make an offer and sometimes being outbid for those. I think it really, really depends on that property, but I haven't seen that much of a drastic decrease in values yet in BC or in the Lower Mainland.
Yeah. Before the COVID-19 hit, prices were actually trending upward. When obviously it hit, everything just kind of came to a halt, and prices have actually remained stable throughout, I would say, March until now. For certain products out there, we're actually still seeing multiple offer situations. And people have to remember our economy, our real estate market is different than the rest of Canada. And I do disagree with CMHC's projections in terms of prices falling upwards towards 18%. It could very well happen. Don't get me wrong. Right. It could very well happen in some smaller areas throughout Canada where the demand is simply not there. But BC, Vancouver in general, we have a lot of demand from not only local buyers, but international buyers as well. And until I actually see those numbers where they are trending downwards, it's hard to really kind of get a sense, because right now I haven't seen much of that. Could it very well happen on a smaller scale, anywhere from 1 to say 5%? Sure. Like anything else in terms of the real estate market, there is always a roller coaster ride. So we'll ultimately see what happens. I don't have the crystal ball that maybe they do, but right now prices remain stable, and I don't foresee them to change much from now until at least the fall. Right. That's just my prediction. So.
And then, as always, if you're buying a home that you plan on living in and staying in for a number of years, there's always going to be fluctuations in the market. So even if it goes down this year, but it kind of levels back up, then increases, I think for people that are looking for a home that they're going to invest in long term, I think overall it's still going to be a long-term investment. So that's what they could look at it as.
Absolutely. And people have to remember, you'll always make money in real estate, but you got to remember it's a long-term investment. You're looking at anywhere from 7 to 10 years minimum, because there are roller coaster rides along the way. There are waves where prices go up. There's a lot of pent-up demand. Prices go down. It's going to happen. So real estate is different than the stock market. You always have to rely, like, it's always going to be a 7 to 10 year investment.
Mm-hmm.
So
something that you hold. Great.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Atrina. I always appreciate your time. It's always great information, and we'll do this again next month and provide another market update.
That sounds great, Nick. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Have a great day.